We all know about the 1997 series King of the Hill. It is still airing on Cartoon Network's Adult Swim block, but I encountered something dark within this series. Sometime in late 2007, I was in the Goodwill store to buy some N64 games, because that store normally had a good stock of retro games. However, I scrolled through the VHS section in the back, just then remembering that I owned a VCR. One of the first things I saw was the Titanic VHS tapes the one that comes in two tapes, but it was one in dust cover. I thought it would be a good movie for me and my wife, as she's never seen it before. To ensure the tapes would be functional, I took one of the tapes out of the dual VHS cover, only to see something unexpected. There was a VHS tape with a crooked sticker on it. Written in Sharpie was KOTHS1E1NR. I inspected the tape and it said a certain thing, which I assumed that it was part 2. I did not know why one 22 to 23 minute episode took 2 tapes, or even why they were being sold as Titanic. But I was curious. I bought the 2 tapes for $2.22. When I got home, nobody was there but me. Therefore, I had to take the painstaking process of uncoiling the stuff in coax cables and bulky VCR. Soon I turned the TV to channel 3 and began reviewing the King of the Hill episode. It had the original opening for the first episode of King of the Hill, but without the music. It was just silent camera panning over to the city of Ireland. It began normally after that, with Bobby in the baseball game and Hank yelling at him. We all know Bobby did not succeed. This is when everything started to get really weird. And on the ride home, Hank, Peggy, and Bobby were completely silent. And this went on for about 3 minutes. No one was angry, no one had any expression actually, just completely blank faces, with only silence for company. Abruptly, as the family pulls into the driveway, it cuts to the scene inside the house. Hank was yelling at Bobby for not giving the 110%. Hank then picked up the baseball bat and got into a throwing position. At this point, the video quality was getting very scraggly, and the volume level was raised roughly 10%. Hank pegged the ball and hit Bobby's nose. Peggy was seen in the background crying, and Hank simply told her to shut the hell up. Bobby immediately cupped his nose and ran out of the room, crying the whole way. As Bobby was in the bathroom checking his nose, a social worker came to the door. Peggy greeted him as Hank sat on the sofa, relaxing as if nothing happened. From this point, the colors began to look more like the real episode. With the scene Hank of telling the social workers played off like it did in the real episode. Suddenly, the scene then officially aired, but the episode cut to another scene, which was not from the real episode. It was a scene with some more ragged video, yet the audio remained the same. The scene depicted Peggy sitting on the phone late at night, mostly contacting child services to tell him about how Hank purposely threw the baseball at Bobby. Hank suddenly walked through the doorway. He was now in a bathrobe and had no glasses, and grabbed the phone. "Who the hell is this?" Hank yelled. "This is the Department for Child Services," was the response. Hank's face quickly turned to red and slammed the phone back on the wall. He grasped Peggy by the neck. "You're gonna get me more of those Twigs boys over here and put me in prison and take my boy away?" he howled. The scene then cut to Hank taking Peggy by the back of the neck, down the hallway to the backyard. Hank took a propane tank off the grill and shoved the valve into Peggy's mouth. This video then went silent for a minute, simply showing the propane valve in Peggy's mouth. When the scene started moving again, Peggy's eyes slowly closed and her voice was heard. "Buck Strickland, forgive me for using propane for this." The only problem was when Hank said this, was Hank didn't even sound like Mike Judge, the creator of the show who voiced Hank. It sounded like an older and deeper voice. When the screen went to black after this, I fast forwarded the rest of the tape to make sure that there was no more content on it. There was none. I just thought to myself, why wasted so much space? And at this point, I was really shaken up. I went to grab a coffee, and when I got back, I popped in the second tape. It was just a black screen. I fast forwarded to check for content and eventually came across some stuff that was starting to really scare me. It was a funeral, but in a few colors. The various colors were gray and black of the colors of people's faces. It did not seem like a real King of the Hill episode. The funeral was for Peggy. Attending was all the Hill's neighbors, including some acquaintances such as Hank's father Cotton and John Redcorn. Even Hank was there, claiming that Peggy had taken her own life. As Peggy's coffin was lowered to the hole, it faded to the overview of it being lowered. This part really scared the shit out of me. It was a somewhat highly realistic image of Peggy in the coffin. The reason why I say somewhat is because it looked real and still apparent to be drawn and not a real person. It was just a realistic cartoon. The scene then cuts to Bobby, Hank, and Labrid just sitting on the porch. Bobby had a queasy face, and Hank had one hand on the propane that he used to commit the murder. Bobby turned to his father. "Why did you do it, Dad?" he asked in a humble voice. "I don't know, son," Hank responded. He almost sounded like he was crying. Then he stood up and walked inside, leaving Bobby and Ladybird, who were still on the porch. It once again then cut to a very dull scene, but with nothing but black, gray, and skin colors. It was a scene that literally made me sick to my stomach. It was Hank, hanging from the ceiling with a note pinned on him. It just stayed there, focused on him swinging back and forth for 2 minutes or so. It then cut to the ending of the credits with the normal outro and theme music. I was kinda laughing on the table on the inside, in fact, that the show was playing the regular ending credits after all the stuff that happened. I was really more confused and creeped out. I went to some forums, but found nothing about the episode. However, I came across someone on Yahoo Answers had a similar occurrence as me. They received the tape from the thrift store in Johns Creek Country in North Georgia, a place about 20 miles away from where I got it. I managed to get on AIM with this person, but I got no answers. I was really curious at this point, so I drove about 40 miles and went down to Cartoon Network, Turner Broadcasting HQ. I knew that Fox Broadcasting made the show, but I assumed Cartoon Network had every episode on record, as they aired them all beforehand. I did some research and I figured out who was in charge of broadcasting King of the Hill. So I found the receptionist in the studio and demanded to talk to him. Apparently, though, I needed a guest pass of some sort. I was completely pissed off at this point, so I drove back home and put my old sheriff's uniform. I was a sheriff for Johns Creek Country for 3 years ago. I went back, although it was unlawful. I used my badge to talk to him. When I got into his office, he was just sitting on the desk talking on his phone. I apparently walked up to him and threw the tape on his desk, demanded answers. He dropped the phone immediately and grabbed the tapes. I followed him to another office on the other side of the building. There was a small safe in his office. He opened it up and put the tapes in and locked it. Then he told me to leave. I did not want to act like the sheriff anymore because I didn't want to get in trouble with the law. So I left and I got home and flipped on the TV. Adult Swim was on, and I was relieved to see a real episode of King of the Hill. To this day, there are still 2 copies of this episode on 4 tapes. I can find anything about the internet. One of them, I assume, is still locked up in Cartoon Network studios. You may possibly come across more of them in thrift stores throughout the Southeast.